Alcohol, a social staple or a silent killer? It may be far more dangerous than you think. Maybe linked to cancer, environmental disasters, even addiction, of course. Pam Killeen's latest Substack seeks to uncover the shocking truths about alcohol and why maybe we need to rethink of its place in our lives. Pam is a health and wellness coach, the co-author of the New York Times bestselling book, The Great Bird Flu Hoax, author of the books Addiction, The Hidden Epidemic, and Survival of the Unfittest, How Wisdom Will Save Humans from Falling into Extinction. She's the host of the Circadian Reboot with Pam Killeen podcast. Hey, Pam, Happy New Year. Welcome back. How are you?
I'm great. Happy New Year, Richard. It's great to be back.
Happy New Year. An alcohol-free New Year, perhaps? Dry January. That's a big thing, isn't it? It's becoming a big thing.
It is. It is. I don't want to sound puritanical here, Richard, but something has to be done about the warnings surrounding the connection between alcohol and cancer. And I liken it to what happened with tobacco, for example. When I looked back in the history of our awareness around the connection between tobacco and cancer, I actually found out that the government knew in the 1920s that there was a connection between tobacco and cancer. And I see the same thing happening here. I think they've known about this connection for many, many years. Alcohol is very, very toxic. I liken it to embalming fluid, for example. It's not easy on the body. It's very hard on the body. And they know about this risk in increasing cancer. They know that there's at least 7 cancers associated with excessive alcohol consumption and other diseases as well. Other problems can occur because of alcohol. And so I think in January, people start to rethink their consumption of alcohol. I think they want to be healthier in the new year. And we know that there's something inherently wrong with alcohol, but the recommendations tell us that it's okay. We can have 1 or 2 drinks a day, and that's probably too much. I think the new recommendations are going to be around 1 or 2 drinks a week. And that's a pretty radical change, if you ask me.
I mean, we've been fermenting fruits and different things. I mean, it's almost as old as civilization, maybe even older. I mean, we didn't have cancer the way we have cancer, 100 years ago. I mean, alcohol consumption has probably gone up, but are you saying even in moderation? I mean, we keep hearing about red wine and the polyphenols that can be used, they can prevent damage to blood vessels and things like that. Are you saying red wine in moderation even isn't healthy?
I think anybody can buy whatever research they want to buy if they want to sell a product. Unfortunately, our science has been hijacked by industry. And so whatever outcome they're looking for in order to sell a product, they will develop the science, the study around that. So I think you just have to be careful. I know myself, Richard, if I have even a little bit of wine, a little bit of alcohol, I have trouble sleeping at night. It completely throws off my circadian rhythm. And so I feel like crap the next day if I even have a little bit of wine. And I want to go out with my friends. I want to have a drink here and there. Again, I don't want to sound puritanical here, but it disrupts my biochemistry so much that it's not worth it for me. My sleep is far more important. And I can't tell you the number of people I talk to every day who tell me that if they have even a little bit of alcohol, it throws off their sleep. And just look at the consequences of throwing off your sleep. The next day, your reflexes are slower, your thinking is slower, you feel really down in the dumps. So I think the priority is that we honor our sleep and we don't do what we know will disrupt our sleep. And people tend to not want to talk about that, Richard. People don't want to talk about the fact that the alcohol is disrupting their sleep. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it's pride. But there's a definite connection there. And I think people also have to rethink their sleep and understand that it's a bigger priority than having some alcohol before you go to bed at night.
You mentioned the environmental impact of alcohol. What do you mean by that specifically?
Well, what I did was I looked into some alcohol spills that occurred in history. And one of the biggest ones I found was this Jim Beam spill that occurred in Kentucky. And they had a fire at the distillery and 40,000 gallons of whiskey spilled out into the Kentucky River and other waterways to the extent of 62 miles of contamination. And throughout all of that spill, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of wildlife that were killed that were adversely affected by the alcohol. So what I thought to myself was, if it's that toxic to the wildlife when it's diluted to that extent, then what is it doing to our bodies? And I think there's some merit into thinking that we can talk about alcohol like we can talk about embalming fluid. It's like it's kind of pickling us in a sense. I mean, look at the people who end up with cirrhosis of the liver. And the liver is critical to so many functions in the body, including our digestive system. So if we're pickling our liver and we're not digesting our food properly because our liver is weak, I mean, this is going to have a very damaging domino effect in the body. So, yeah, I think we need to learn from what has happened in nature to see what alcohol can do to us.
You talk about the importance of natural sunlight and vitamin D in reducing cancer risks. How do these factors maybe complement efforts to mitigate the harms of alcohol consumption?
Well, I don't know if you can mitigate the harms of alcohol consumption. I suppose it depends on how much you're drinking. But I did write a book back in 2010 called Addiction, the Hidden Epidemic. And I didn't know then what I know now about circadian rhythms and sleep and dopamine. This information really wasn't available back then. And so what happens with alcohol is it will disrupt your sleep and your circadian rhythm. And in so doing, that alone can trigger things like cancer in the body. So we know how important melatonin is. It is the most powerful antioxidant in the body. So if you're drinking alcohol, this will negatively impact your melatonin and other hormones and neurotransmitters in the body. And so when you're drinking alcohol, throwing off your sleep, throwing off your circadian rhythm, this has all sorts of spin-off repercussions simply because it will throw off your sleep. And that is just something that, it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel good. And ultimately, I think we want to make healthy choices in our lives. And I'm not saying you can't have some alcohol with your friends once in a while, but people don't know. In fact, when this story came out about the Surgeon General wanting to put warning labels on alcohol, the story included information that said that 45% of the population doesn't know about the damaging side effects of alcohol. So if they do put warning labels on alcohol in the United States, it might make people think twice. I don't know if it's going to reduce consumption or not. It seemed to work with tobacco, but people need to think twice before they have at least too much alcohol too frequently during the course of a week.
Pam, how do we read the Substack?
Just type my name in with a Substack, Pam Killeen. I just started a Substack page, so I'll be publishing ongoing articles there.
Pam Killeen, Killeen, Killeen. And again, the Circadian Reboot with Pam Killeen podcast is available, and Pam joins us every Tuesday at this time. Pam, Happy New Year. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks, Richard.